Donald Trump is now surrounding himself with the kind of people who would never have any tension with him, the kind of people who only say yes, people whose only qualification for the kinds of jobs they're getting are that feature, that fact, that they're loyal only to him, not the Constitution, not the expertise once associated with the agencies they've been tapped to lead. Just take the most recent cabinet picks: a Fox News weekend morning show anchor to head the Department of Defense, a former Democratic congresswoman who publicly spreads Russian talking points, who has been now tapped to lead the nation's spy agencies, and a man who was the target of a years-long federal sex trafficking investigation to lead the Department of Justice. And of course, the breaking news we just brought you in the last hour: a world-famous anti-vaccine activist, Robert Kennedy Jr., to lead the Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. We need to talk about what's next. Trump won the election, and we can't engage in the same denialism that defined the other side. But if you think Trump's second term is going to go smoothly, think again. We know how this movie ends, with chaos, overreach, and a massive, determined backlash from Americans who aren't willing to let democracy slip away. His cabinet appointments all but guarantee that. The sheer level of incompetence, corruption, and venality that we're about to see will be staggering, and we need to be ready to respond. It's one of the things democracy can still do by giving people, voters, the chance to weigh in on how things are going. Remember 2018 when we built a massive nationwide response to Trump's first election? Millions of Americans, ordinary citizens, activists, disillusioned Republicans, and new voters rose up and said enough. We delivered Trump and MAGA a major defeat in the midterms, flipping the House and putting a real check on his power. It was a clear demonstration of what happens when people come together to demand accountability. And believe me, this time it's going to be historic. We know that Trump thrives on chaos, but he doesn't seem to understand that the chaos he creates always comes back to bite him. He can't govern effectively because he's more interested in spectacle than in substance. And throughout our government, he is replacing competent public servants with loyalists, many of whom will not know the first thing about how to do their jobs.
And it's not just the positions at the top of the agencies that Trump is filling with unqualified yes men and women. He has threatened to purge these departments of civil servants who he believes are not loyal enough to him. The Republican Party has already demonstrated over the last 9 years that they almost always let him have his way with whatever his attention demands.
Donald Trump may be good at agitating his diehard supporters, but that kind of leadership, if you can even call it that, will lead to failure when it comes up against a determined opposition. And this time, that opposition is ready. Let's start with the legal front. There are armies of experienced attorneys across the country who have been preparing for this scenario. They've spent the past few months studying his methods of overreach and planning how to counter every one of his authoritarian moves. Some of the lawsuits are already lined up. We're talking about a systematic legal strategy designed to challenge every unlawful executive order, every attempt to undermine the rule of law. It's not just about playing defense, it's about going on offense. And what about the states? Blue state governors have also been preparing. They've anticipated the possibility of a Trump comeback and have been setting up protections for their constituents. States like California, New York, Washington, and Illinois have passed legislation to safeguard everything from reproductive rights to environmental protections to LGBTQ plus protections. They're not going to sit by and let federal overreach steamroll the progress they've made. If and when Trump tries to impose his agenda on their citizens, they're gearing up for a direct confrontation. We also need to talk about those appointments, which are dominating the news. This is where it really starts to get alarming. The names being floated for key positions are a who's who of political extremism and incompetence. Matt Gaetz, the guy is a walking ethics violation. Putting him in any position of power signals that Trump isn't interested in governing effectively. He's interested in settling scores and rewarding loyalty. And Pete Hegseth, a man whose qualifications consist mostly of appearing on Fox News and repeating talking points that play well with Trump's base, He's not a serious choice for any role in government. But that's exactly the point. Trump's picks aren't meant to build a functioning administration. They're meant to wage a cultural war. It's about signaling to his supporters that he's taking the fight to the so-called deep state, even if it means putting unqualified ideologues in charge of critical government functions like national defense. Lomi is as easy as pushing a button. It turns food waste into dirt in just hours, faster than composting and way easier than hauling out the trash. Lomi lets me turn my food scraps into dirt with the push of a button. It's a countertop electric composter that takes my waste and transforms it into nutrient-rich dirt in less than 4 hours. I run it while I sleep, just like my dishwasher. No more smelly trash bins, and it's so quiet you barely notice it running. Since I got my Lomi, I'm taking out way less garbage. I used to struggle with 3 full bags of trash every week. Now I'm down to just 1. Just last night after dinner, I tossed all the leftovers into Lomi. What I love most is how much waste I'm keeping out of landfills. Less trash means less methane, and with Lomi, I'm turning that waste into nutrient-rich dirt that my plants absolutely love. It's so satisfying to know I'm doing my part for the environment without any extra effort. Getting my Lomi was one of the best decisions I've made for my home. I used to feel guilty about how much food waste I was tossing every week, but Lomi has completely shifted that. If you're ready to start making a positive environmental impact and make cleanup a breeze, Lomi is exactly what you need. Head over to lomi.com/Ken and use promo code Ken to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you go to lomi.com/Ken and use promo code Ken at checkout. Say goodbye to food waste and hello to a cleaner, greener kitchen with Lomi. And with the holidays coming up, Lomi makes the perfect gift for someone on your shopping list. It's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break here to let you know that we'd love to hear from you. Your comments, suggestions, thoughts about future topics and guests. Email us at info@thekenharbaughshow.com. And make sure to rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and back to the show. Tulsi Gabbard is another name we keep hearing, and while she once had a reputation as a maverick, she's since veered into a strange blend of isolationism and conspiracy mongering. She's embraced positions that align more closely with authoritarian regimes than with American values. Appointing her to any significant role isn't about fostering unity. It's about creating division and feeding a paranoid worldview that pits Americans against one another. But here's the thing. Trump's cabinet is going to be his own undoing. He's setting himself up for disaster by surrounding himself with yes men and opportunists who have no idea how to actually run a government. They're going to stumble, and when they do, it's going to be on full display for everyone to see. This isn't just speculation. We've seen it before. Remember the disastrous rollouts of policy in his first term, the chaotic implementation of the travel ban, the botched pandemic response, the corruption scandals involving his closest allies. It's all coming back. And if you think the Republicans are going to restrain Donald Trump and keep him from exercising his worst impulses, like his insane tariffs proposal, think again. This is Congressman Troy Nehls minutes after Donald Trump spoke to the Republican caucus after his reelection.
If Donald Trump says tariffs work, period. Because Donald Trump is really never wrong. Think about it. He's never wrong.
One more thing. Let's not forget that Trump's legal problems are far from over. His presidency might give him temporary shelter, but the investigations haven't gone away. Whether it's state-level cases in New York and Georgia or ongoing probes, these legal challenges are going to be a persistent threat throughout his second term. He can't outrun the consequences of his past actions forever, and his legal troubles are a ticking time bomb that's going to explode. The other major factor is the power of grassroots organizing. In 2016, Trump blindsided a lot of people, but after 4 years of his first term, the resistance network was built. Today, it's stronger than ever. We have laid the groundwork for an enormous grassroots backlash sustained by organizations that have spent years building coalitions, mobilizing voters, and advocating for progressive policies. They know how to fight, and they're already on the move. And let's not overlook the youth vote. Generation Z is coming into its own politically, and they're not going to sit this one out. They've grown up watching Trump's antics, and they have the most to lose from the consequences of his policies. School shootings, climate disasters, the erosion of rights. They are fed up. This is a generation that doesn't just want change, they demand it. They're progressive, they're mobilized, and they're ready to vote in record numbers. The media landscape has also evolved. In 2016, the press was largely unprepared for Trump's antics and treated him like a sideshow rather than a serious threat. This network did not even exist in 2016. But we are building the capacity to respond without having to depend on mainstream channels. The gloves are off, and the coverage is going to be relentless. Every misstep, every scandal, every overreach is going to be scrutinized. In the end, Trump might have won this battle, but the war for the future of our democracy is far from over. The backlash is already brewing. It's in the streets, it's in the courts, it's in state legislatures, and it's in the hearts and minds of millions of Americans who are ready to stand up and fight back. Trump is about to learn once again that while he may have the loudest voice, the power of the people, the power of a determined, organized, and outraged citizenry is far louder.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.